The silence after the gunshot. The Hall of Stars had never known silence. For over 3,000 cycles, it had been the loudest place in the galaxy. Voices layered upon voices, gravel tones from stone-skinned delegates, sharp clicks from insectoid envoys, melodic harmonics from gas-born beings. The chamber breathed with constant sound, a living monument to interstellar order. At its center stood Ambassador Selim Reese of Earth. He wore no armor. No shield emitters glowed beneath his clothing. His dark blue diplomatic coat fell neatly over his shoulders, its fabric simple compared to the jeweled robes around him. On his chest rested Earth's emblem, a silver star enclosed in a circle, polished by human hands. Selim stood straight, hands folded behind his back, eyes steady. He had been chosen carefully for this role. Not for strength or cunning but for restraint. For the belief, perhaps naive, that reason could still guide the stars. Above him, seated on a tiered throne of translucent crystal, loomed Archconsul Virex Thale. Thale's body refracted the chamber's light into sharp angles. His species evolved from mineral-rich worlds, and his gaze felt like standing before a blade. The matter before us, Thale declared, his voice amplified across the chamber, is the unchecked spread of humanity. A low murmur followed. Selim waited. Humans had learned patience long before they learned spaceflight. You have expanded into 5-star systems, Thale continued. Systems now claimed by Council interests. Selim stepped forward, boots echoing softly. Unclaimed, he corrected, his voice calm and clear. Surveyed, mapped, and marked as empty by Council records. Several delegates shifted. Data flickered in the air. You build colonies rapidly, Thale said. You fortify them. You arm your civilians. Selim nodded once. We protect our people. We do not threaten yours. A scaled envoy hissed from the side platforms. Your ships carry weapons capable of planetary damage. So do yours, Selim replied without raising his voice. A ripple of irritation spread through the chamber. Humans had earned a reputation for saying uncomfortable truths. Thale leaned forward. You speak boldly for a species so new to this council. Selim met the Archconsul's gaze. We speak honestly. That is why we're here. The translation systems hummed softly, rendering every word in perfect clarity. The chamber lights dimmed slightly, a sign of rising tension. The Council finds humanity's presence destabilizing, Thale said. Your history is aggressive. Selim's jaw tightened just a fraction. Our history is survival, he said. We fought ourselves before we ever reached the stars. We learned from it. Thale's crystalline eyes flared brighter. Yet you continue to build weapons. Selim inhaled slowly. Because the universe is not kind to the unprepared. The murmurs grew louder. Some delegates nodded. Others recoiled. Thale raised one razor-edged limb, and the chamber fell quiet again. Ambassador Selim Reese, he said, voice cold and precise, you stand accused of violating galactic stability. Selim frowned. By existing? Pause. The Archconsul's lips, if they could be called that, curved into something resembling a smile. By refusing to submit. The word echoed. Selim felt it then, not fear but something else. A wrongness. The air felt heavier as if the chamber itself had drawn a breath. Earth seeks cooperation, Selim said carefully. Not dominance. They'll lean back. The Council disagrees. There was no vote. No countdown. No warning. A single concealed emitter unfolded beneath Thale's throne. The sound it made was small. Sure. Final. A beam of violet energy crossed the chamber in less than a heartbeat. Selim felt heat before pain. He staggered backward, eyes wide, not in terror but disbelief. His hand moved to his chest, where the energy had struck cleanly through flesh and bone. The room froze. Selim looked down at the smoking wound. Then up. For a moment he searched the faces around him. Not for mercy. For understanding. He found none. His legs gave way. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed louder than the gunshot ever had. The Hall of Stars fell silent. No murmurs. No translations. No movement. The vast chamber, which had never been quiet in its entire existence, held its breath. A small human recording device rolled from Selim's hand and came to rest beside him. Its indicator light blinked steadily, transmitting everything back to Earth in real time. Archconsul Thale rose slowly. Let the record show, he announced, that the human ambassador has been judged and executed. The translation system repeated the sentence in 1,000 languages. Selim's eyes stared upward, glassy now, reflecting the chamber lights. The silver star on his chest was scorched black. Far beyond the chamber, across light years of vacuum, the signal reached Earth. It reached the listening posts, the orbital stations, the quiet rooms where diplomats waited. On Earth, a technician froze mid-sentence. On Luna, a general clenched his fist. On Mars, a child watching the broadcast asked why the man wasn't moving anymore. And in the deep archives beneath Earth's oldest continents, systems long dormant registered a change. A line of code activated. Status, human ambassador, terminated. Protocol review, required. In the Hall of Stars, the Council began to speak again, convinced the matter was settled. They did not yet understand what silence truly meant. Earth receives the body. The coffin arrived without warning. It emerged from hyperspace above Lunar Station Aegis inside a cold, sterile cargo capsule. No escort ships. No diplomatic signal. Just a blunt automated transmission, stripped of ceremony and compassion. Human Ambassador Selim Reese, deceased. Judgment carried out. Matter concluded. The words echoed through the command chamber like a slap. Commander Iris Holt, officer of the watch, stared at the message in disbelief. Her fingers hovered over the console, unmoving. They killed him, she whispered. No one answered. Across the station, alarms did not sound. There was no emergency protocol for this. No handbook entry for the murder of humanity's voice in the stars. Docking clamps engaged. The cargo capsule latched onto Aegis with a hollow metallic thud that reverberated through the station's spine. Inside Docking Bay 7, a small group waited in silence. President Alara Voss stood at the front, hands clasped behind her back. She had flown to the moon the moment the transmission arrived. Not as a politician, but as a human. Beside her stood Dr. Merrick Ilian, Director of Strategic Systems, his normally calm face drawn tight. To Alara's right waited Admiral Jonah Cade, recalled from retirement just hours earlier, his uniform hastily pressed, his eyes heavy with questions he already feared the answers to. The airlock cycled. Cold vapor spilled across the bay floor as the capsule doors unlocked. Inside lay the coffin. It was not human-made. Its surface was seamless, forged from an alien alloy that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. No markings. No name. Just a smooth, featureless shell, efficient, impersonal, final. Two technicians approached slowly, scanning for threats. Containment clear, one said. No active systems. They disengaged the seals. As the coffin opened, the room seemed to shrink. Selim Reese lay within, preserved by unfamiliar technology. His face was peaceful, as if asleep. The wound in his chest had been sealed, not healed, left as evidence. The silver emblem of Earth on his coat was burned black at the center. Alara took a step forward. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she reached out and rested her hand on the edge of the coffin. I sent you to speak for us, she said softly. Not to die for us. No cameras recorded this. No media broadcast followed. This moment belonged only to those present, and to the weight pressing down on every human watching from afar. Admiral Cade broke the silence. They didn't even pretend it was an accident, he said. They executed him. On record. Dr. Ilian nodded grimly. The transmission was public. Every listening post received it. Alara closed her eyes briefly. They wanted to make an example of us. Dr. Ilian glanced at her. And did they? Alara opened her eyes. No, she said. They made a mistake. The coffin was sealed again and transferred to the station's ceremonial chamber. Along the corridor, crew members stopped and stood at attention as it passed. Some saluted. Others bowed their heads. No one spoke. On Earth, the news spread faster than any official announcement. Cities fell quiet. Stock markets froze. Even the oceans seemed calmer, as if the planet itself were listening. At the United Earth Assembly, emergency sessions were called. Diplomatic advisors argued for restraint. Economists warned of panic. Old alliances urged patience. Alara ignored them all. Instead, she summoned a very different group. Deep beneath Earth's southern ice, beyond public records and forgotten by history, a secure channel activated for the first time in decades. 3 figures appeared on the screen before her. They wore no insignia. No ranks. No expressions. The custodians. Madam President, said the center figure, voice distorted by encryption. State your authorization. Alara did not hesitate. Ambassador Selim Reese has been murdered by the Galactic Council, she said. Under a banner of peace. The custodians exchanged silent glances. Dr. Ilian leaned forward. We have confirmed the execution. Full recordings. No provocation. Pause. Then the custodian spoke again. Do you request protocol review? Elara thought of the coffin. Of the silver star burned black. Of the billions watching and waiting for her to choose who humanity would be. Yes, she said. The air in the chamber seemed to thicken. Be advised, the custodian continued, once initiated, escalation control is limited. Elara's voice was steady. They crossed a line we warned them existed. Another pause. Authorization code? The custodian asked. Elara placed her hand on the biometric scanner. Voss Prime, she said. By the will of Earth. The scanner glowed green. Authorization accepted. Across the planet, systems older than modern governments stirred. Hidden shipyards powered up. Buried satellites realigned. Archives unlocked, revealing strategies never meant to be used. On Lunar Station Aegis, Admiral Cade received a private notification. He read it once. Then again. His hands tightened into fists. Elara, he said quietly, the Annihilation Protocol is real? She met his gaze. It was always real, she replied. We just hoped we'd never need it. Admiral Cade exhaled slowly. Then the galaxy is about to learn something. What's that? He asked. Elara looked back at the sealed coffin, now draped in Earth's flag. That humanity does not forget its dead, she said. And we do not forgive executions. Far above, beyond Luna's orbit, stars burned silently, unaware that a decision had been made. A decision that would echo across every system. A decision that had only one possible beginning. And an ending no one was ready for. What the galaxy never learned about humans. The galaxy had catalogued humanity carefully. Adaptive. Ambitious. Emotionally volatile. Those were the official descriptors filed by the Galactic Council after first contact. Humans were considered dangerous, but predictable. A young species eager for recognition, desperate for belonging among older powers. What the galaxy never learned was why humans adapted so quickly. The truth lay buried beneath Earth's oldest scars. Long before humans reached the stars, they had nearly destroyed themselves. Not once but repeatedly. Each time they survived not by strength alone but by memory. By recording every failure. By building safeguards not just against enemies, but against their own worst instincts. That habit never faded. It simply evolved. Deep beneath Antarctica's ice shelf, a vault older than the United Earth Assembly awakened. The Helios complex had no windows, no banners, no monuments. It was not a place of pride. It was a place of contingency. Dr. Merrick Ilian walked its white-lit corridors with measured steps. He had authorized drills here before, simulations that never left the walls. This time the systems responded differently. They did not ask questions. They assumed necessity. Level Omega access confirmed, announced a calm synthetic voice. Welcome back, Director Ilian. He paused before a massive sealed door marked only with a simple phrase. We prepare so we never have to. The door slid open. Inside, holographic displays bloomed into existence, projecting star maps far beyond what the public believed humanity could reach. Systems pulsed in synchronized patterns, linking Earth, Luna, Mars, and dozens of hidden installations scattered through human space. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Jonah Cade. He stared at the projection in silence. These ships, he said slowly, they're not just warships. Dr. Ilian joined him. No. They're instruments. Cade turned. Instruments of what? Finality. Across the galaxy, human assets stirred, quietly. Shipyards buried inside asteroids retracted their camouflage. Vessels shaped unlike any known design slid into open space. They were sleek, angular, and disturbingly calm in their movement, as if they knew exactly where they were going. Unlike other species, humans did not build their greatest weapons for intimidation. They built them for closure. On orbital station Nix, Captain Celine Ward received a message marked with a symbol she had only seen once during training. A black circle enclosing a white star. Her pulse quickened. She dismissed her bridge crew, locking the command deck. The message unfolded in silence. Finish Prime Directive active. Await further instruction. Maintain radio silence. Celine leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. So it's finally happened, she murmured. Humanity's greatest strength was not its firepower. It was its patience. The Annihilation Protocol was not a button. It was a philosophy. For centuries, humans had studied the mistakes of older empires. How they relied on fear. How they escalated too fast. How they confused dominance with control. Human strategists designed something different. A response that did not scream. A response that spoke in consequences. At the Helios complex, Dr. Ilian activated the next layer. Begin Phase 1, he said. The system complied. Across human space, data archives opened. Not military targets, but historical records. Every interaction humanity had ever had with the Galactic Council began cross-referencing. Trade disputes. Border incidents. Disappeared colonies that were quietly blamed on pirates. Patterns emerged. Admiral Cade watched as red markers bloomed across the star map. They weren't just hostile, he said. They were careful. Dr. Ilian nodded. They thought we were too new to notice. On the Galactic Council's capital world, Virex Thale watched reports scroll across his private chamber. Human activity had increased, but not aggressively. No fleets massing. No weapons charged. It unsettled him more than open threat ever could. They hesitate, he told himself. But deep down a shard of doubt formed. Humans did not hesitate when afraid. They hesitated when calculating. Back on Earth, President Alara Voss stood alone in the memorial hall. Selim Reese's coffin rested beneath a single beam of light. The flag draped over it stirred gently in the filtered air. She did not pray. Instead she remembered. The custodian's voice echoed in her mind. Once activated, escalation control is limited. Alara knew what that truly meant. Humans did not escalate step by step. They moved directly to resolution. At Nick's station, Captain Ward's console chimed softly. New orders. Coordinates appeared, far beyond any known trade lane. No name. No description. Just a designation. Target class, symbolic. Celine's breath caught. Symbolic, she repeated. Not military. She smiled grimly. The galaxy believed humans fought for territory. What it never learned was that humans fought for meaning. The Helios complex received confirmation pings from across human space. All units synchronized. All variables aligned. Admiral Cade straightened his uniform. When we cross this line, he said to Dr. Ilian, there's no pretending we're just another species. Dr. Ilian met his gaze. We stopped pretending the moment they killed our ambassador. Far above Earth, the stars did not change. But something beneath them did. Humanity was no longer asking for a seat at the table. They were preparing to rebuild the table entirely. And the galaxy, still measuring humanity by outdated files and false assumptions, had no idea what was coming next. The first world to fall. The Galactic Council chose disbelief. In the wake of Ambassador Reese's execution, reports of human activity flooded Council intelligence channels. Hidden shipyards revealed. Energy signatures spiking across human space. Fleets moving in synchronized patterns. And yet no shots were fired. Archconsul Virex Thale stood before the council chamber, crystalline limbs folded behind him, projecting calm. Humans posture, he declared. They seek attention, not conflict. Several delegates nodded, eager to believe him. They are loud, emotional, Thale continued. But they lack the discipline for sustained war. This is intimidation. A warning chime interrupted him. An aide rushed forward, voice trembling. Archconsul, we've lost contact with Vokareth Prime. The chamber fell quiet. Thale frowned. Signal interference? No, sir, the aide replied. All signals. Orbital, planetary, subspace relays. They ceased simultaneously. Thale turned sharply. Deploy probes. They're already gone. What do you mean gone? The aide swallowed. There is nothing there. At the edge of known space, Vokareth Prime had been a monument to Council authority. A fortress world wrapped in overlapping defense grids, its surface layered with cities carved directly into obsidian rock. It had never fallen to invasion. Never been challenged. Until now. Above the planet, space bent. Captain Celine Ward stood on the bridge of the human vessel ECS Resolute. The ship was silent. No alarms, no shouted commands. Every officer moved with practiced precision, their faces set with grim focus. Target lock confirmed, her tactical officer said. All parameters within tolerance. Celine stared at the hologram of Vokareth Prime rotating slowly before her. Confirmed target classification, she said. Symbolic authority world, came the reply. Civilian population evacuated per Council Protocol 6 cycles ago. Celine nodded. Humans had known this. They had waited. Begin phase execution, she ordered. The Resolute did not fire a weapon. Instead, it deployed a single object from its ventral bay, a sphere no larger than a shuttle, shimmering with contained energy. It drifted toward the planet, unopposed. Vakaretha's defense grid scanned it, found no hostile signature and allowed it through. On the surface, council officials watched the sky in confusion. "What is that?" one asked. Before anyone could answer, the sphere activated. Space folded. Not exploded. Folded. Gravity inverted. Light twisted inward. The planet's mass collapsed into itself in perfect symmetry, pulled into a shrinking point of impossible density. Cities vanished. Mountains curved. Oceans lifted and poured into nothingness. In less than 3 seconds, Vakareth Prime ceased to exist. Where a world once hung, there was only a quiet distortion, like a scar in space. On the Resolute, Celine exhaled. "Execution complete," her officer reported. "No residual debris." Celine closed her eyes for a brief moment. "Transmit message," she said. A single broadcast pulse leapt across the stars, directed not at military channels, but at the Galactic Council's public network. One life was taken without justice. This is the cost. Then the Resolute vanished into slipspace. Back in the Hall of Stars, chaos erupted. Delegates screamed. Translation systems struggled to keep pace. Species that had never known fear scrambled for meaning in the impossible absence of an entire world. Thale stood frozen. It's a fabrication," he muttered. "A projection." But the data did not lie. Vakareth Prime was gone. Not damaged. Not conquered. Erased. "They didn't attack our fleets," one delegate cried. "They attacked a symbol." A new alert blared. Another world flagged red. Then another. Human vessels were appearing across Council space, not in formation, not massed for battle, but individually, precisely. Each arrival was followed by silence. Then absence. President Alara Voss watched the reports from Earth, her expression unreadable. "Phase 1 is complete," Dr. Merrick Ilian said beside her. "Psychological dominance established." Alara nodded slowly. "They still have a choice," she said. At that moment, an emergency transmission cut through. Human fleets had halted. Everywhere. Weapons powered down. Positions held. The galaxy waited. On the council capital, Thale collapsed into his throne. "They're not waging war," he whispered. "No," replied a shaken delegate. "They're teaching." A final message arrived on every council display. "Humanity has not declared war. This is a correction. Respond accordingly." Silence returned to the Hall of Stars, but this time it was different. This silence carried weight. Fear. And the terrifying realization that the galaxy's youngest species had just demonstrated restraint, after proving they didn't need it. Somewhere in the void, human ships waited. The next world to fall would not be chosen at random. And the Council knew it. The Council begs. The Hall of Stars had survived supernovas, invasions, and internal wars. It had never survived humiliation. The chamber was full, yet the seats of power felt suddenly fragile. Delegates who once spoke with arrogance now whispered, their voices carrying a tremor no translation system could hide. Vakareth Prime was gone. Not conquered. Not destroyed. Removed. And humanity had stopped. Human fleets held their positions across Council space, their weapons cold, their silence oppressive. No threats followed. No demands were made. That silence was worse than any barrage. Archconsul Virex Thale stood at the center platform, his crystalline body fractured with stress lines that glimmered under the chamber lights. He raised his limbs for order, but it took longer than usual for the room to obey. "This session is now under emergency protocol," he announced, forcing strength into his voice. "The human collective has committed an act of unparalleled aggression." A delegate from the Sirathi Clades hissed. "Aggression? They erased a world in seconds. And spared 1,000 others," replied a smaller envoy, voice shaking. "They could have continued." That truth settled heavily. "They didn't strike fleets," another delegate said. "They didn't invade. They targeted a symbol." Thale's eyes flickered. "They wish to frighten us." "They already have," someone whispered. A priority alert interrupted the chamber, human signal detected. The room froze. The central display ignited, revealing a single figure. President Alara Voss stood alone against a dark background. No flags. No emblems. Just a human in a dark suit, her expression calm and unreadable. She did not speak immediately. The silence stretched. Thale felt something he had never known before. Anticipation. "President Voss," he said carefully, "you will explain this act." Alara tilted her head slightly. "No," she replied. "I will clarify it." The chamber murmured. "You murdered our ambassador," she continued. Under a banner of peace. Without trial. Without vote. Thale straightened. The council rendered judgment. Ilara's gaze hardened. You executed a diplomat, she said. You taught us how you resolve disagreements. She leaned forward slightly, as if addressing individuals rather than an institution. So we responded in a language you understand. Thale clenched his limbs. This response is disproportionate, he snapped. Ilara did not raise her voice. Disproportionate would have been burning your fleets, she said. Cracking your homeworlds. Ending this council entirely. Gasps rippled through the chamber. This, Ilara gestured, was a demonstration. A delegate cried out, You erased a world. Ilara's eyes flicked to them. We erased a fortress, she corrected. One evacuated by your own protocols. You built it to intimidate. We removed it to communicate. Thale felt the balance shifting, and he was losing it. What do you want? He demanded. For the first time Ilara smiled. Not warmly. You're already asking, she said. Behind her, holograms appeared, lists, timelines, data points. Over the last 2 centuries, Ilara continued, your council has quietly sanctioned executions, suppressed developing species, and erased inconvenient histories. Thale recoiled. These are classified. We know, Ilara interrupted. Humans listen. We archive. We remember. The holograms shifted again. Footage, testimony, hidden records. You believed we were too new to notice, Ilara said. Too eager to belong. She paused. You were wrong. Silence filled the chamber. What happens now? Asked the trembling delegate. Ilara straightened. You will choose, she said. The display changed once more, 3 simple conditions. The Galactic Council will dissolve its current authority structure. All member species will submit to an open historical audit. Ambassador Selim Reese will be formally recognized as the first martyr of interstellar peace. Thale stared at the list. This is extortion, he said weakly. Ilara shook her head. No, she replied. This is an offer. And if we refuse? Thale asked. Ilara met his gaze. Then the lesson continues. No threat followed. None was needed. Thale looked around the chamber. Every delegate avoided his eyes. They had seen what humans could do. And worse, what they chose not to do. This council was meant to preserve order, Thale said, his voice cracking. Ilara's expression softened, just slightly. Then preserve it, she said. By becoming better than you were. The connection cut. The chamber erupted, but not in anger. In panic. What choice do we have? Someone cried. They spared us, another whispered. That was mercy. Thale sank into his throne. For the first time in his long existence he understood. Humanity was not seeking domination. They were enforcing accountability. 6 minutes passed. 6 minutes of whispered arguments, data reviews and terrified calculations. Then Thale rose. He walked to the center of the chamber and did something unthinkable. He removed his insignia. It shattered against the floor. The Galactic Council, he announced, voice hollow, accepts humanity's terms. Across human space, sensors registered the change. Weapons powered down. Ships held position. President Ilara Voss received the confirmation and closed her eyes. Stand by, she ordered quietly. The galaxy had begged. And humanity had listened. But mercy like power was a choice. And the final one had not yet been made. The choice no one expected. The galaxy waited. Human fleets remained exactly where they were, motionless sentinels scattered across council space. Engines idled. Weapons slept. Not a single ship advanced or withdrew. That stillness unsettled every species watching. War they understood. This restraint, they did not. On Earth, President Ilara Voss stood in the Situation Chamber beneath the United Earth Assembly. The room was quiet except for the steady hum of holographic projectors displaying live feeds from dozens of star systems. Dr. Merrick Ilian stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back. The Council has accepted all terms, he said. They're waiting for confirmation. Ilara nodded slowly. And the custodians? She asked. They're standing by, Ilian replied. Annihilation Protocol remains active but contained. She closed her eyes briefly. Contained was a fragile word. Admiral Jonah Cade broke the silence. With respect, Madam President, this is the moment every strategist dreams of. We've broken their authority without firing a war. We could dismantle their military infrastructure now, permanently. Ilara looked at him. I know, she said. Cade's jaw tightened. Then why hesitate? Elara gestured toward the stars. Because the galaxy expects us to finish what we started, she replied. They expect conquest. She turned back to the projection of the Hall of Stars, now filled with anxious delegates awaiting her response. And expectation, she continued, is a weapon too. The secure channel opened. Archconsul Virex Thale appeared once more, his once pristine crystalline form dulled, stress fractures running along his limbs. We have complied, he said. The council stands dissolved. Transitional authority is prepared. Elara studied him in silence. Thale shifted uncomfortably. What happens now? Around the galaxy, species held their breath. Elara leaned forward. Now, she said, we choose what kind of power humanity will be. She gestured to Dr. Ilian. Stand down phase 2, Ilian ordered. Across human space, a ripple of confirmations followed. Weapons fully powered down. Targeting systems disengaged. Annihilation Protocol de-escalated. The galaxy exhaled. But confusion quickly followed. Human ships did not leave. They repositioned. Not around capitals. Around trade routes, refugee corridors, and disputed systems long plagued by piracy and exploitation. Admiral Cade stared at the tactical map. They're protecting, he said quietly. Elara nodded. We're not here to rule, she said. We're here to reset the board. She addressed the council once more. You will not rebuild the Galactic Council as it was, Elara declared. No closed chambers. No secret votes. No executions in the dark. Thale lowered his gaze. You will form a concord of systems, she continued. Open representation. Transparent law. Shared enforcement. A murmur spread. And humanity? Asked a delegate cautiously. Will you lead it? Elara shook her head. No, she said. We will anchor it. The word echoed. She continued, human fleets will serve as neutral guardians until the Concord stands on its own. Thale looked up sharply. Why? Elara's eyes softened. Because power that lasts is power that lets go, she replied. On Earth, the public watched in disbelief. Humans had humbled the galaxy. And now they were stepping back. At Lunar Station Aegis, Selim Reese's coffin remained in the ceremonial chamber. Engineers and artists worked quietly nearby, constructing a monument that would soon be unveiled. A young technician paused, staring at the coffin. Sir, she asked an officer beside her, was this worth it? The officer considered the question. Yes, he said finally. Because it didn't end the way they expected. Back at the Helios complex, the custodians received final confirmation. Annihilation Protocol entering dormancy, the synthetic voice announced. Deep beneath the ice, systems powered down one by one. Not destroyed. Preserved. Just in case. President Elara Voss returned to the memorial hall alone. She stood before Selim's coffin, hands folded. They thought killing you would silence us, she said softly. She looked up at the stars visible through the dome. They were wrong, she whispered. But we didn't become them. Far across the galaxy, worlds once ignored felt human patrols for the first time, not as conquerors but as shields. Trade resumed where it had once failed. Disputes paused under human mediation. The galaxy began to change, not through fear but through structure. And that terrified some species more than annihilation ever could. In the Hall of Stars, now stripped of its old symbols, Thale watched human ships on the display. They could have ended us, he murmured. A nearby delegate nodded. They chose not to. Thale felt a chill. That choice was the most dangerous thing humanity had done yet. Because it proved something undeniable. Humans did not crave power. They mastered it. And mastery was permanent. What humanity became. History does not remember the loudest moments. It remembers the ones that changed direction. Years after the fall of the Galactic Council, scholars across 1,000 worlds would mark that era not by the day Vakareth Prime vanished, but by what followed. The quiet. Human fleets did not remain forever. True to their word, they withdrew system by system as the concord of systems found its footing. Patrol routes were handed over. Mediation councils formed. Trade lanes stabilized. The galaxy began to breathe again. On Earth, the memorial hall expanded. At its center stood a statue of Ambassador Selim Reese, cast not in a heroic pose, but in simple form. Hands folded, gaze steady, a diplomat frozen in calm resolve. Beneath it, a single inscription read, "Peace is our choice. Disrespect is yours." Children from Earth and beyond visited the hall. Teachers told the story carefully, not as a tale of conquest but of restraint. because that was what set humanity apart. President Alara Vos did not seek another term. When asked why, she answered simply, "Some power should only be held once." She returned to private life, her legacy already etched across the stars. Admiral Jonah Cade oversaw the final drawdown of human fleets. On the bridge of the last departing Guardian vessel, he watched the stars stretch into slipspace and felt something unexpected. Relief. "We won without losing ourselves," he told his crew. That victory meant more than any battle. At the Helios complex, Dr. Merrick Ilian sealed the final vault. The Annihilation Protocol was archived, not dismantled. Humanity had learned long ago that forgetting was dangerous. But so was obsession. "Prepared?" he murmured. "Not eager." Across the Concorde, old rivalries softened under transparent law. Some species adapted quickly. Others resisted. A few tried to reclaim old methods. They never got far. Because humanity had changed the rules. Not through fear of destruction, but through certainty of response. On the rebuilt Hall of Stars, Virex Thale, no longer Archconsul, merely a representative, stood before Selim Reese's statue during the annual remembrance session. He studied the human diplomat's face. "You should have feared us," Thale said quietly. "You would have lived." A human delegate standing nearby shook her head. "He wasn't afraid," she replied. "That's why he died." Thale absorbed the words. In time, even he came to understand. The galaxy had always believed strength meant domination. Humans proved it could also mean accountability. Long after fleets withdrew and treaties faded into routine, the story endured. Not of the world that fell, but of the choice that followed. In distant systems, parents warned their children, "Do not mistake human silence for weakness." On Earth, a young student once asked her instructor a simple question. "Why didn't we rule the galaxy when we could?" The instructor smiled. "Because ruling ends," he said. "What we built had to last." The student frowned. "Will it?" The instructor looked up at the stars. "That depends on us," he replied. Deep beneath Earth's crust, the Annihilation Protocol slept. Not humming. Not counting down. Just waiting. Not as a threat, but as a reminder. Humanity had not become executioners. They had not become tyrants. They had become something rarer. The line no one was allowed to cross twice. And across the galaxy, every species, young and old, learned the same lesson. Humanity did not seek to rule the stars. But if the stars forgot what justice meant, humanity would remind them.